Hey guys, I'm Amber, this is Amber Online, and this month for Spotlight on Comics we're talking Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassaday. Planetary is a book put out by Wildstorm Comics. It first came out around the year 2000, so before I was old enough to read a comic like Planetary, so mine are reissues in trade. It's a phenomenal science fiction, high science fiction story that sort of re-examines superhero tropes and how they might look in the real world. So if you've ever read anything like Powers, or even if you've sort of looked into Civil War stuff with the Marvel Universe and that sort of has this more realistic portrayal of how superpowers might act in the real world, this takes that up a notch, in my opinion. You will probably recognize the creative team on this, Cassaday and Ellis, both very big names in comics. Ellis, of course, a great creative mind. He's written a lot of things. Cassaday, his work very popular in the Astonishing X-Men line he did with Joss Whedon when it relaunched. Great artist, great writer, work very well together, very complementary in their storytelling styles, so this comic comes together very nicely, even though Cassaday was perhaps more mature when he was writing at this time, so his art style is not completely as it is now, but it's still very solidly him, and he does great facial expressions, great diversity in his faces and his people. You're not sort of looking at cookie cutter images of everyone, but rather real characters and realized characters, and Ellis also does a phenomenal job of just taking science fiction tropes and science fiction ideas, or even some fantasy or mythos ideas, and just making them his very own, and defying those tropes, and showing us what they would look like in the real world. So they tackle things like, you know, UFO landings, or a vengeful ghost, or time travel, alternate realities. All of this stuff is tackled in this book, and done so extremely well, and with an extremely realist, critical eye, while still being wonderful high science fiction. So if you enjoyed movies like Her, you might enjoy this comic because it's the same sort of thing, like what these ideas might look like in our world. Like if these high science fiction ideas were planted in our world, how would they turn out? And I think that works really well, and especially in our believing it's our world, because the super team, as it were, that you have assembled here exists to create a barrier between the general public and supernatural phenomenon. So the first volume is this team. We learn about them, we learn who they are, we learn what their special abilities are, and they're going around sort of doing cover-up operations so that the average Joe doesn't learn about these supernatural phenomenon, isn't freaked out by them, and can go on living their regular life. So the first volume is a series of vignettes. I think it's actually the hardest starting point to get into because you don't get a through narrative necessarily at the beginning that you want to keep following through, but it is extremely well written and a lot of intriguing ideas in there. And then as the 4-volume series progresses, and it's only 4 volumes, so it's easy to collect all of them, you get more and more about this team and about who they are and about what they do. And I don't want to spoil a lot for you because part of the joy of Planetary is really discovering how they do what they do and how Ellis and Cassaday take on these tropes and change them up. And I don't want to spoil that for you, but let me say, when I was reading this, it was one of the first times I read something about time travel that I'm like, yes, that's absolutely how time travel would work. Absolutely. And that doesn't happen a lot if you've watched a lot of time travel science fiction. It's hard to do right. You know, just ask Star Trek fans. They're still mad about that. I keep checking and it's confirmed they're still mad about the time travel in Star Trek. But I digress. Planetary is a phenomenal book. I think I sort of did this video now because it's something I've loved for a really long time. And in January, they just released an omnibus collected edition of all 4 volumes. So it's out now, and it can be purchased and obtained and read now, whereas before it was sort of hard to get these because they are obviously an older issue. But it's out altogether now, and you can get it, and you can read it, and you can love it. But this is just extremely well done. You know, it's sort of an anti-hero team, which is very popular right now. So it was ahead of its time in that way, that it had these great realized characters that felt like real people but are still super people. And then particularly the primary central character, Snow, what they do with him is just like awesome. It's just woven such a twisted web around his life and his story, and it's stupendous. I don't use stupendous lightly. That's like one of those words I pull out for occasions. and this is an occasion. So as you can see, beautiful art, really well told stories. I first was introduced to Planetary when I was like reading a Wizard magazine when I was a kid, and it was a feature on these panels that they had done about the DC Pantheon in the real world. So if Clark Kent really had been sent as a little alien baby to Earth in a space shuttle, what would have happened? And what happened is the government intervened and they killed that baby because it's, you know, hostile alien invasion. Green Lantern is a man powered by a space light, and he's been taken in and he's being dissected, and Wonder Woman is trying to impose Amazonian values on the world, and that doesn't go well either. And it's sort of, it is a pessimistic view of how we would receive oddities, but I think it's also a very realist one for sort of the jaded eye on the world. So if you have a jaded eye on the world, you'll be like, yes, totally. And if you don't, you'll be like, very interesting. But it's something to check out, and it's out being re-released now because that's just a testament to how good it is. It's 14 years old, and they're like, yes, more of this. Bring it back. So check it out, enjoy it, and yeah. Comics are good. Bye. Mini after video segment to talk about what's coming up next month. I'm previewing myself. Is that weird? Do you guys care? I don't know. I'm doing it anyways because I can't be stopped, apparently. So next month, Dark Souls 2 is coming out, so I'll have some gameplay of my very own playthrough for that, see how long I can survive. Also, Rat Queens is supposed to be coming to trade. I hope it makes it. I'm very, very excited to read that and talk about it. We've got the sort of start of the movie season coming up. Godzilla's hitting. I've got some thoughts on, you know, cultural roles in film. I've been watching some things that aren't science fiction, but have got me thinking, so I may subject you to that anyways. Super excited for next month. A lot of good media coming out, a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about, and a new mod, of course, because that's how I spend my time. I talk to the camera, and I play with action figures. I'm a grown-up. Anyways, alright guys, bye.